The forest was alive with shadows. Twisting branches clawed at the sky, and the wind whispered secrets through the leaves. Every step Leora took was careful, measured. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest, but she forced herself to keep moving. Behind her, the sounds of pursuit were close, soft footsteps, the snap of twigs, but something else lingered, something she could not yet see. Her lungs burned as she ducked under a low branch, feeling the rough bark scrape her palms. She had run for what felt like hours, though the sky above still held the dim glow of early dusk. Leora's mind raced. She didn't understand why they were after her. All she knew was that her bloodline was special, and those hunters, cold, silent, and relentless, would not hesitate to take her by force. A sudden rustle froze her. Her instinct screamed at her to hide, but before she could react, a figure emerged from the shadows. He was tall, broad, and moved with the silent authority of a predator. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, amber and piercing. Leora swallowed hard. Something about him felt both terrifying and strange, as if he belonged to the forest itself. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, commanding, carrying a dangerous weight. I'm just passing through," Leora stammered, though she knew he could see through her lie. He stepped closer, and the air seemed to thicken around him. Leora's skin prickled with fear and something else she could not name. "You're not safe," he growled, the words resonating with a power that made her chest tighten. "Not with them. Not with me." The forest shifted around him, and it was as if the shadows themselves leaned toward his command. Leora's instinct screamed at her to run, but the ground seemed to catch her, roots twisting like fingers to hold her in place. "You don't understand," she said, trying to sound brave, but her voice trembled. "I can protect myself." He studied her, eyes narrowing, and for a moment Leora saw something deeper than danger there, something old, heavy, and full of pain. Then he shook his head, a low growl rumbling from his chest. "You are human. You cannot survive here alone." Before she could protest, he turned and strode deeper into the forest. Leora had no choice but to follow. Each step was filled with tension. The forest seemed to watch them, ancient trees bending slightly as if to guide them along. As they moved, he finally spoke her name. "Leora," she froze. How did he know her name? "You are of the blood the hunters seek," he said, eyes scanning the treetops as if expecting them to attack from above. "I cannot let them take you. Not while I live." Leora's chest tightened. There was a mixture of fear and something else in his words, a strange sense of protection she had never known. She had always relied on herself. She had always been alone. Yet now, with this creature who seemed both man and something more, she felt a flicker of hope. They reached a clearing where moonlight spilled across the ground in silver patches. He stopped and turned to her fully. The height of him was imposing. The strength in his presence made the hairs on her arms rise. "You will stay with my pack," he said firmly. "There is no other choice." Your pack?" Leora asked, confusion and awe mingling in her voice. He did not answer immediately. Instead, his eyes scanned the forest edges, alert for danger. Finally, he said, "They will try to find you. They always do. If you leave, they will take you. If you stay, you may survive. That is all I can promise." Leora looked at him, trying to read the shadows in his gaze. He was dangerous, but she could see the edge of a promise there, the kind that whispered of protection rather than harm. She had no idea what kind of world he came from, what kind of being he was, yet something deep inside her told her to trust him. I don't know if I can," she admitted, her voice small but honest. "I've never been part of anything like this." "You will learn," he said, his voice low, almost gentle now, though the growl remained beneath it. "But you must obey the rules. Your safety depends on it. And remember," he leaned closer, and she could see the faint glint of teeth as his lips curved slightly, "you are not safe with me." The words sent a shiver through her, but not the kind born of fear. There was something thrilling, something forbidden in his tone. Leora took a deep breath. She had survived long by trusting no one. Yet here, in this forest filled with shadows and danger, she had no choice but to follow. They moved deeper into the woods, the path winding between gnarled trees whose roots rose like obstacles, yet the man, or creature, led with ease. Sometimes he would glance back at her, ensuring she was still following, and sometimes his eyes would flicker to the shadows, as if reading the forest itself. The sounds of pursuit had faded, replaced by the occasional howl of distant creatures. The forest seemed alive, watching them, waiting. Leora realized that she was entering a world unlike any she had known. A world where strength and danger walked side by side, where creatures of legend roamed, and where every step carried risk. After what felt like hours, they reached a hidden river, its waters black and shimmering under the moon. He paused at the bank, scanning the opposite shore. "This is as far as the hunters will reach tonight," he said. "We will rest here. You must keep silent. They will sense fear." Leora nodded, though her mind raced with questions. Who was he? What kind of pack did he lead? And most importantly, what had she stumbled into? As they sat by the river, the man, Kyle as she now knew, kept his eyes on the darkness beyond the trees. He seemed to relax only slightly, but every muscle in his body remained tense, ready to spring into action. Leora watched him, fascinated despite herself. He was terrifying, yet there was a strange beauty in his presence, a power that was magnetic and dangerous all at once. She began, then stopped, unsure if it was safe to speak. "You need not speak unless it is necessary," he said, his voice quiet now, almost thoughtful. "Words can betray fear." Leora swallowed, forcing her trembling hands to still. She realized for the first time that survival here was not about running or hiding. It was about understanding, observing, and trusting, even when trust seemed impossible. Night deepened around them. The wind carried distant sounds of unknown creatures, whispers of magic, and the faint rustle of leaves. Leora could feel the pulse of the forest, almost as if it were alive, moving with them, around them. Kale's presence was a constant beside her, a shield against the unseen dangers, yet also a reminder that her safety depended entirely on him, and perhaps on her ability to rise to this world's demands. As she drifted into a restless sleep by the riverbank, she could feel Kale's eyes on her, amber and watchful, alert to every sound. His growl, soft and almost thoughtful, rumbled into the night. "You're not safe with me." The words lingered in her mind, frightening, yet compelling. Leora realized she had no choice. Whatever lay ahead, whatever dangers the forest, the hunters, or the magic itself held, she would face them with Kale, the alpha king of this shadowed world. And somewhere deep inside, a spark of curiosity and fear began to intertwine with a strange, unspoken longing. The forest whispered around them, secrets of old curses and hidden power. Leora had entered a world of danger, power, and darkness. Yet for the first time she did not feel entirely alone, and she knew somehow that her life was about to change forever. The forest seemed to shift as they moved deeper into its heart. Shadows clung to the trees like smoke, and the air was thick with scents that Leora could not name. Kale led her silently, his steps confident and sure, while she struggled to keep pace. Every now and then she would stumble over twisted roots or loose stones, and Kale's amber eyes would flash briefly, not with anger, but with sharp attention. "This way," he said finally, his voice low and commanding, yet calm. "The sanctuary is close. You must learn the rules before you enter." Leora nodded, though her mind raced. Sanctuary rules? She had no idea what this world held, only that it was unlike anything she had ever known. She felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. After what seemed like an eternity, Kale stopped at the entrance to a hidden valley, shrouded by mist and shadow. The trees parted to reveal a fortress built of dark stone and gnarled wood, perched atop a rise. Wolves and other creatures moved with silent grace along its walls, their eyes reflecting the moonlight. Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. "This is my pack," Kale said. "You will stay here. You will obey the rules. Your safety depends on it." Leora swallowed hard. I don't even know the rules." Kale's gaze softened slightly, though a warning still lingered in his eyes. "You will learn. First, you must understand that this is not the world you came from. My pack protects this land. We live by strength, loyalty, and discipline. No weakness is tolerated, but courage is rewarded. You will survive only if you respect this." The words were heavy, and Leora felt the weight of them pressing against her chest. She had always been independent, surviving by her wits alone. Here, survival required more than cleverness. It required trust, obedience, and courage she wasn't sure she possessed. Kyle led her into the heart of the sanctuary. Wolves padded silently beside them, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Other creatures lurked in the shadows, forms half seen, moving with a grace that made Leora's pulse quicken. Some were humanoid with sharp eyes and long limbs, Others were more bestial, yet all moved with a purpose and a quiet intelligence that filled the valley with life and power. "This is where you will stay," Kyle said finally, stopping before a large stone building that seemed carved from the earth itself. "Inside, you will be safe from the hunters, but not from what you may discover here." Leora looked at him, unsure whether to be frightened or curious. What do you mean?" Kale's eyes darkened. "This place tests those who enter it. The forest, the pack, even the shadows themselves. You may learn things about yourself you did not know. Some of it will frighten you. Some will change you." Leora nodded, feeling both nervous and strangely drawn to the mystery of it all. She had never been one to follow orders. Yet something about Kale's presence made her want to obey, to survive, and perhaps to understand the strange pull she felt toward him. Inside the sanctuary, the atmosphere changed. The air was warmer, scented with herbs and the smoke of a central fire. The walls were lined with torches that flickered softly, illuminating stone carvings of wolves and other creatures that seemed to move in the firelight. Leora felt as if she had stepped into another world, one that existed parallel to the ordinary life she had known before. Kale led her to a small room with a simple bed and a few personal belongings. "This will be your space," he said. "You may rest here, but you may not leave the sanctuary without permission. The hunters are still out there, and the forest does not forgive easily." Leora sank onto the bed, feeling the tension in her body begin to ease slightly. Yet even in this safety, she could feel the weight of Kale's eyes on her, alert, protective, almost demanding. She wondered what it must be like to carry such responsibility, to guard an entire pack and command creatures of strength and magic. "You will eat," Kale said, breaking the silence. "You will learn the ways of the pack, and you will obey. Survival is not given, it is earned." As Leora followed him to the dining area, she saw the full scope of Kale's pack. Wolves lounged near the fire, their eyes gleaming with intelligence. Humanoid figures moved silently around the room, tending to tasks with precise efficiency. Some of them watched her closely, curious and wary. She realized that this was not merely a group of followers. They were warriors, guardians, and beings who had pledged themselves to Kale with absolute loyalty. One of the humanoid figures approached her, a tall woman with silver hair and eyes like the sky at dusk. "You are new," she said softly. "Do not fear. You will learn. But you must listen to him. Kale. He protects all of us, and now he will protect you." Leora nodded, grateful for the kindness, yet still uneasy. Everything was so different, so alive, so full of unseen power. She realized that she was not only learning to survive, she was learning to exist in a world that did not obey the normal rules she had always known. After the meal, Kale led her to the edge of the sanctuary, where the forest stretched endlessly beyond. "You will train," he said. "You will learn to move through the forest, to understand it, and to survive its dangers. Only then can you truly be safe. But remember," his gaze softened for a brief moment, but the growl in his voice remained. "You are not safe with me." The words struck Leora with a strange intensity. They were a warning, a promise, and something else she could not name. She wanted to argue, to protest, to claim that she could handle danger on her own. Yet the truth was undeniable. She was far from safe. Not in this forest, not in this sanctuary, and perhaps not even with Kale. That night, as she lay on her bed, Leora could hear the sounds of the forest, the distant howls, the rustle of leaves, the soft padding of wolves moving silently. Kale's presence was a constant shadow, felt even when unseen. She realized that the world she had entered was alive in ways she had never imagined, and that her survival depended not only on courage, but on understanding the balance of power, loyalty and trust. Sleep was restless. Leora dreamed of the forest, of Kale, of shadows that moved like smoke and whispered her name. She saw flashes of hunters, of creatures from the pack, and of herself standing on the edge of a great chasm, unsure whether to jump or retreat. And always, beneath it all, was Kale, watching, growling, protecting, and somehow drawing her closer. When she awoke, the first rays of dawn were breaking through the canopy. Kale was already awake, standing by the window looking out over the forest with eyes that seemed to pierce the mist. "You must be ready," he said, turning to her. "The forest will test you. So will the hunters. And so willing yourself. Trust in the pack, trust in me. But do not forget, you are not safe. Not yet. Leora took a deep breath. Her heart still raced, but there was determination in her chest. She would learn. She would survive. And perhaps in some strange, impossible way, she would find her place in this shadowed world, beside this Alpha King who both terrified and fascinated her. Outside, the mist curled around the trees, hiding shapes that moved with purpose. The sanctuary seemed both safe and dangerous at once, a paradox that mirrored the presence of Cale himself. Leora understood that she had crossed a threshold into a life that would test her courage, her heart, and her very understanding of power. And somewhere deep in the forest, unseen eyes watched them, calculating and waiting, as if knowing that the true challenges had only just begun. The forest had a rhythm of its own. Moonlight dripped through the branches like silver liquid, and the air was thick with the scent of moss, earth, and magic. Leora moved through the sanctuary with growing familiarity, though each step still carried the tension of someone walking between two worlds, human and something far stranger. Cale walked beside her, silent, watching. His presence was a constant pressure, commanding yet protective. Leora could feel the pull of him in the way he moved, the way he breathed, the way the pack responded to his every motion. She had begun to understand that being in this place was not just about learning survival. It was about understanding power, and her own place within it. "You are stronger than you realize," Kyle said one evening as they trained near the edge of the forest. His voice was low, almost a growl, but it carried a strange warmth beneath it. "I don't feel strong," Leora replied, panting as she lifted a heavy branch with more effort than skill. Her muscles ached, her body protested, but her determination remained. "I just try to keep up." Cale's eyes narrowed. "Strength is not just in the body," he said. "It is in the mind, the instincts, the will to survive. And in the forest, instinct is everything. You will learn to listen, or the forest will consume you." As if on cue, a shadow moved across the clearing, and Leora froze. A fox-like creature with eyes glowing faintly observed them from the underbrush. She had seen the pack's animals before, but never one like this, intelligent, almost otherworldly, and quietly assessing her. Cale's gaze followed hers, his posture tightening. "Do not let fear guide you," he warned. "Feel, observe, respond. You are part of this world now. You must understand it." Leora closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting the sounds of the forest reach her. The rustle of leaves, the soft pad of distant paws, the hum of life all around. It became a rhythm, a pulse she could sense in her own chest. And then she felt it, a spark of something inside, a flicker of power she had never known. She gasped, drawing Cale's attention immediately. His eyes were sharp, penetrating, and there was an unreadable emotion in them. Concern, surprise, something deeper. "You feel it," he said simply, almost as if it was a revelation. "The forest is speaking to you. That is your gift. Few humans can sense it, let alone awaken it." I don't understand," Leora admitted, her voice trembling. "What does it mean?" Cale's expression darkened. "It means that you are not ordinary. Your blood carries something old, something tied to the forest and to me. You will need this power if you are to survive what is coming." Leora shivered, not from fear but from the weight of realization. She had always known she was different, though she could never name why. Now in this strange world, her difference had a purpose, and it connected her to Kyle in ways she could not yet comprehend. Training continued, and Leora found herself pushing harder than she ever had. Cale's methods were exacting, sometimes harsh, yet always precise. He corrected her stance, her movements, and her instincts with a sharpness that kept her alert. And yet, in moments when the forest was quiet, he would watch her with something softer, almost human, that he never allowed himself to show fully. By nightfall, Leora could feel her senses sharpening. She could hear the faintest rustle of leaves from dozens of meters away, smell the subtle shift in the air as creatures moved unseen, and sense the life of the forest as though it were part of her own body. She realized that Cale had not just been training her in survival, he had been awakening her. One night, as they sat near the sanctuary's central fire, Cale's gaze fell on her in a way that made her pulse quicken. The flickering flames reflected in his amber eyes, and for a moment the tension between them felt almost tangible. "You are changing," he said quietly. "You are becoming part of this world, whether you realize it or not. And I will not lie, that terrifies me." "Terrifies you?" Leora asked, startled. "Why?" Kyle looked away briefly, then back. Because I have lived long and I have seen what power can do. I have seen it destroy, consume, and corrupt. I am not certain I can protect you. Not fully. And yet I cannot let you go. Her chest tightened at his words. There was a danger in them. A darkness she could sense even without understanding it fully. Yet beneath that danger was an undeniable pull. A magnetism that drew her closer despite her fear. Suddenly a howl broke the stillness of the night. Leora's senses screamed at her, alert, instinctive, alive. Cale's body tensed and his growl rolled low in his throat. "Hunters," he said grimly. "They are close. We must be ready." Leora's heart raced. The hunters were persistent, cunning, and merciless. She had escaped them once, but now she understood that her survival depended on more than running. It depended on Kyle, the pack, and the growing strength within herself. Kyle moved with a fluid grace, leading her to a vantage point where the forest opened to a small clearing. From there they could see the faint lights of torches moving through the trees, hunting, seeking, relentless. "You will need to fight," Kyle said, his voice low but firm. "And not just with strength. You will fight with instinct, with your mind, and with your heart. Do you understand?" Leora nodded, swallowing hard. "I think so," she said, though uncertainty lingered. He studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he stepped closer, just within reach, his presence overwhelming. "If you falter, I will protect you," he said, the growl in his voice softening for the briefest instant. "But I cannot fight your battles for you. Not entirely." A strange heat surged through Leora at his words. There was danger, yes, but also trust. A bond was forming between them, uneasy, fragile, but undeniable. She realized that the forest, the pack, and Cale himself were teaching her more than survival. They were teaching her connection, instinct, and courage in a way she had never known. The hunters drew closer, their shapes becoming clearer in the moonlight. Cale's pack responded with silent coordination, shadowy figures moving through the trees with lethal precision. Leora's heart pounded as she realized she was part of this now. She felt the spark within her flare brighter, her senses alert, her instincts alive. As the hunters stepped into the clearing, Kyle moved like a shadow, faster and more fluid than Leora had ever seen. He protected her with a single sweep of his body, growling fiercely, commanding the forest itself to aid them. Leora felt the pulse of the land beneath her feet, the breath of the trees, the rhythm of the pack, all of it feeding into her awareness. With a surge of instinct, she moved, dodging, observing, sensing the forest as an extension of herself. She realized that Cale had been preparing her for this moment, awakening her power, teaching her to feel, to trust, to act with precision. And in that instant she understood something profound. She was no longer just a human girl. She was part of this world, part of this pack, and part of Cale in a way she could not yet name. The hunters were forced to retreat, their strategy disrupted, their confidence shaken. Kyle stood beside Leora, chest heaving, amber eyes blazing in the moonlight. "You have potential," he said, his growl softening. "But this is only the beginning. You will need more than courage to survive what is coming." Leora met his gaze, feeling a mixture of fear, awe, and something deeper stirring in her chest. She realized that the bond between them was growing stronger with each passing moment. Danger, trust, and desire all intertwining in a way that neither could ignore. As the forest settled into silence once more, Leora stood beside Cale, breathing heavily but alive in a way she had never experienced. She had faced danger, awakened power, and glimpsed the strength that lay within her. And though Cale's warning lingered, "You are not safe with me," she knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test her heart, her courage, and her understanding of power itself. The ruins lay ahead, shrouded in mist and shadow. Ancient stones jutted from the earth like broken teeth, and the air was thick with the scent of moss, old magic, and secrets long forgotten. Leora's heart raced as she followed Cale, her senses alert to every sound, every movement. She could feel the forest behind them, alive and watchful, as if it were aware of what was to come. Cale moved silently, his body coiled like a predator ready to strike. Leora had grown used to his presence, but tonight, something was different. His amber eyes flicked constantly, scanning the ruins, the trees, even her. There was tension in his movements, a tightness she had not seen before. "We are entering dangerous territory," he said softly. "The ruins are old, cursed and watched by forces that do not forgive mistakes. You must stay close to me, trust your instincts, and above all, trust me. Leora nodded, swallowing hard. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from anticipation. She could feel the pulse of the forest beneath her feet, guiding her, teaching her, and she knew that her awakening powers were growing stronger with every step. The spark within her, first felt at the edge of Kale's sanctuary, now flared like a small fire, and she felt alive in a way that frightened and thrilled her. As they stepped into the heart of the ruins, shadows shifted around them. Shapes moved just beyond the corner of her vision, figures half seen, flickers of movement that vanished when she turned to look. The stone seemed to hum, vibrating with energy that resonated in her chest. "Do you feel it?" Kyle asked, his voice low, almost a growl. The ruins test those who enter. They sense fear, weakness, hesitation. You must not falter. Leora closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She reached out with her senses, feeling the life in the stones, the trees, and the air itself. The forest had taught her to listen, to feel, to act not just with her body but with the rhythm of the world around her. Slowly she realized she could sense the hidden traps, the illusions meant to mislead intruders. A sudden gust of wind rattled the stones, carrying with it a whisper, a voice ancient and chilling, speaking in a language she did not understand. Leora's pulse quickened, but she focused, grounding herself in Kale's presence and the flow of her own power. "You are ready," Kale said, his voice tense but approving. "But readiness is not enough. Courage and trust will carry you further than skill alone." They pressed deeper into the ruins. Shadows thickened, twisting around them, forming illusions of monsters and enemies. Leora's first instinct was to panic, but she reminded herself of Kale's teachings. She breathed, centered herself, and let the forest guide her senses. The illusions wavered, and she saw the path clearly. Kale's hand brushed hers as they moved through a narrow corridor of broken stone. The contact was brief, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. His touch was both grounding and electrifying, a reminder that in this strange, dangerous world, she was not alone. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a humanoid form with eyes glowing like molten gold. Leora's heart leapt, but she did not move blindly. She sensed the creature's intent, the flow of its energy, and she stepped aside just in time as Kale lunged forward, his movements fluid and precise. The fight was swift, a dance of shadow and steel. Leora watched, captivated, as Kale moved with the grace of a predator and the precision of a warrior who had fought countless battles. He protected her while striking with lethal efficiency, his growl a constant undercurrent that vibrated through the ruins. "Move with me," he barked, and instinctively Leora did. She felt the rhythm of the forest guiding her, the power within her responding to the danger. Together they moved as one, dodging, weaving, sensing the illusions and the traps, their movements in sync. When the creature finally fell, dissolving into shadows, Leora's chest heaved. Adrenaline surged through her, and for the first time she felt the power of her own abilities in a real, tangible way. Kale's eyes met hers, and in that glance she saw a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper, something that went beyond words. "You did well," he said quietly, his voice almost tender. "But this was only a test. There is more ahead." Leora nodded, though her body trembled. The thrill of victory was tempered by the awareness that the ruins held even greater challenges. She realized that Kale's training had not just been about survival, it had been about awakening her courage, her instincts, and her connection to the forest. They continued deeper into the heart of the ruins. Ancient carvings lined the walls, depicting battles between humans and beasts, kings and sorcerers, warriors and monsters. Leora traced her fingers over the symbols, feeling a connection to the past, to the power that had shaped this place. She realized that the trials were not just physical. They were tests of heart, spirit, and understanding. Kale's voice broke her reverie. "These ruins are alive. They remember. They judge. Do not underestimate them, or the power that lurks here." As they approached a large circular chamber, the temperature dropped suddenly. Mist curled along the floor, obscuring the stone, and whispers echoed from every direction. Leora's senses screamed at her to stay alert. She felt Kale tense beside her, every muscle coiled and ready. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, tall, imposing, and cloaked in darkness. Its eyes burned with an ancient intelligence, and its presence filled the chamber with a weight that pressed against Leora's chest. "You have come far," the figure intoned, its voice echoing as if the ruins themselves were speaking. But you are not ready. Only those who understand the balance of power, trust, and courage may survive. Kyle growled low in his throat, stepping protectively in front of Leora. She is ready, he said fiercely. And you will not harm her. The figure's eyes flicked to Leora, and for a moment she felt the weight of its scrutiny, as if it could peer into her very soul. Then it spoke again. Strength alone is not enough. Only unity, understanding, and the awakening of true power will allow survival. Leora swallowed, feeling the pulse of her own awakening power resonate with the chamber. She stepped forward slightly, feeling the forest's guidance, Kale's presence, and her own courage converge. In that instant, she understood something profound. Survival was not just about fighting or running, it was about connection, trust, and embracing the power that lay within. Kale's hand brushed hers again, grounding her. Together, he said simply, and together they faced the figure. The chamber seemed to pulse, the shadows shifting and swirling around them. Leora felt her senses heighten, her instincts sharpen, and her courage solidify. She realized that Kale had not just protected her, he had prepared her to stand as his equal, to confront danger with strength and clarity. The figure studied them silently, then slowly nodded. You are prepared, it said, its voice echoing like distant thunder. But the true test is not over. The forest, the pack, and the unseen forces beyond will challenge you still. Remember this. Trust, courage, and unity are your greatest weapons. And even then, you are not safe. The words echoed in Leora's mind, but instead of fear, they sparked determination. She had faced the ruins, the illusions, and the shadowed figure. She had felt her power awaken, her instincts sharpen, and her courage grow. She had begun to understand the rhythm of this world, the connection between Kyle, the forest, and herself. Kale's amber eyes met hers, and in that glance, she saw the full weight of his feelings, protectiveness, respect, and something deeper he had yet to name. The tension between them was undeniable, a mixture of danger and longing, power and trust. As they left the chamber, moving back toward the sanctuary, Leora realized that she had crossed another threshold. She was no longer merely a human girl fleeing danger. She was a participant in a world of shadows, magic, and power. And though Kale's warning, "You are not safe with me," lingered, she understood that the real trial had not been the shadows or the figure. It had been discovering her own strength and her connection to him. The forest seemed quieter as they walked, yet Leora could sense the unseen eyes that watched, the hidden dangers that still lingered. She knew that the trials were far from over, that the pack, the hunters, and the magic of the ruins would continue to test her, but she also knew that she had grown, that she had awakened something within herself, and that Kale's presence was both a shield and a guide she could no longer ignore. The forest was alive with tension. Every leaf, every whisper of wind seemed charged with expectation, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Leora's senses were alert, her body coiled with readiness. She had trained, survived illusions, awakened her power, and faced the dangers of the ruins. But she knew that the true test had not yet come. Kyle moved beside her, a silent shadow. His presence was overwhelming, commanding, protective, and impossibly close. Leora felt the familiar thrum in her chest, a mixture of fear, excitement, and something deeper she could not yet name. Tonight there would be no illusions, no minor tests. The hunters were coming, and they were bringing a darkness that even the forest feared. "They are near," Kale said, his voice a low growl. "The hunters have gathered. They seek not just you, but the power you carry." Leora nodded, her jaw set. She could feel the spark within her, the energy of the forest and the pulse of Kale's presence beside her. She was no longer the frightened human who had stumbled into his sanctuary. She was part of this world, and she would fight with every ounce of courage and instinct she possessed. The hunters emerged from the mist, a coordinated force moving silently through the trees. Their torches flickered, illuminating their grim faces, but the forest seemed to twist and turn around them, slowing their progress. Leora sensed the magic at work, the whispers of the land itself aiding them. She could hear Kale's low growl ripple through the clearing, and in response the pack stirred, moving as one, ready to defend what was theirs. Kale stepped forward, his stance commanding. "Stay behind me," he ordered, yet his eyes never left hers. "Trust in yourself. Trust in me. We survive together." Leora felt the surge of her power responding to his words. The forest, the pack, and the bond with Kale pulsed through her veins. She lifted her hand, feeling energy ripple outward, sensing every movement of the hunters before they struck. This was no longer training. It was war. The first hunter lunged and Kale moved like a shadow, swift and precise, intercepting the attack with ease. Leora reacted instinctively, her senses guiding her movements. She dodged, countered, and directed the energy around her, forming protective currents that shielded them both. She realized, in awe and fear, that the spark she had felt from the beginning had grown into something far stronger, a force she could wield in harmony with the forest and with Kale. The battle was a blur of motion. Shadows danced, energy flared, and the hunters realized quickly that they faced more than one opponent. Leora moved with a clarity and precision she had never known, guided by instinct, courage, and the bond she shared with Kale. Each time he called out a warning, she responded. Each time the forest shifted, she followed its rhythm, and then she saw it, a figure moving apart from the hunters, cloaked in shadow, its eyes glowing with ancient malice. The ruins had not spoken falsely. There was a power here older than the forest itself, and it sought to claim what she carried. "Leora," Kyle growled, his voice a mixture of command and warning. "This is the moment. Stand with me and trust yourself. You are not just part of the pack, you are my equal here." The words ignited something deep within her. Fear melted into determination, hesitation into clarity. She stepped forward, energy coursing through her veins, and faced the shadowed figure. Her senses flared, every instinct sharpened, and she realized that this was not merely survival. It was a choice. She could fight, embrace her power, and protect the pack. Or she could falter. The shadow lunged, and Leora met it with a surge of energy, a force that radiated from her, strengthened by the forest and Kale's presence. The clash sent shockwaves through the clearing, twisting the mist and shaking the trees. Kale fought beside her, a predator in perfect sync with her movements. Together they were unstoppable, a bond of shadows, courage, and trust. The battle raged, but Leora found clarity in the chaos. She could feel the life force of the shadow, its attempts to manipulate and overwhelm. Yet she held her ground, letting her instincts guide her. Every step, every motion was in harmony with Kale, the forest, and her own awakened power. The figure faltered, sensing the unity and strength it had not anticipated. Kyle's amber eyes met hers in a brief, blazing moment. "Now, Leora," he shouted. And with that command, she unleashed the full force of her energy, a pulse that radiated outward like the heartbeat of the forest itself. The shadow shrieked, a sound of pure anger and surprise, and dissolved into mist, leaving only silence in its wake. Breathing heavily, Leora turned to Kale. He was alive, unscathed, yet every muscle tensed, his gaze still sharp. For a moment they simply looked at each other, the tension between them palpable. Relief, admiration, and something deeper lingered in the space between them. "You did it," Kale said quietly, his voice low, almost reverent. "You faced it. You embraced your power, and you stood with me." Leora's chest heaved, her heart still racing. I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted, her voice trembling. You taught me everything. You believed in me." Kale's expression softened, and for the first time he allowed himself a hint of something more human to show. "I did not just teach you," he said. "I learned with you, and you are not safe with me, Leora, but I cannot bear to let you go." The words, so raw and honest, cut through the tension of the night. Leora felt a warmth spread through her, a mixture of relief, understanding, and a growing bond that had been building since the moment he had taken her into the pack. She realized that this bond was not just about survival. It was about trust, connection, and something that neither time nor danger could sever. The forest seemed to exhale around them, the shadows receding, the wind softening. The pack emerged from the edges of the clearing, eyes gleaming with respect and loyalty. They had witnessed the strength, courage, and awakening of Leora, and they recognized her as one of their own. Kyle stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, grounding and affirming. "You are part of this world now," he said quietly, "and part of me, whether you choose to accept it or not." Leora felt the weight of his words, the depth of the connection that had grown between them through danger, trust, and shared trials. She realized that the forest, the pack, and Kale had not only tested her, they had transformed her. She was stronger, braver and more alive than she had ever been. And in that moment she understood that she had found a home, not just in the sanctuary but in the bond with Kale. As dawn broke over the forest, mist curling around the trees, Leora and Kale stood together. The battle behind them and the promise of the future ahead. The hunters had been driven off, the shadow defeated, yet they both knew that life in the forest would continue to test them, to challenge them, and to push them further. But for now, in this quiet moment, they allowed themselves to simply exist together. The tension of fear and danger had melted into something more profound, a connection forged in trials, trust, and the awakening of power. Kyle's amber eyes softened as he looked at her. "You are mine to protect," he said, his growl gentle now, but not just as a charge, as something more. Leora reached out, her hand resting against his chest. "And I am yours," she said, her voice steady. "Not because I have to be, but because I want to be. In this world, in this pack, with you." A quiet understanding passed between them, a bond sealed not with words alone, but with the shared trials, trust, and courage that had defined their journey. The forest, the sanctuary, and the pack all seemed to acknowledge it, the world holding its breath for a moment before life resumed its rhythm. As the sun rose, casting light through the mist and illuminating the forest in gold, Leora and Kale knew that the dangers would come again, but they also knew that together they could face anything. The pack was theirs, the forest their ally, and their bond unbreakable. The Alpha King and the human girl, once strangers, now allies, warriors, and something far deeper, stood side by side, ready to face whatever the world would bring. And in that readiness, in that trust and connection, they found safety not in the absence of danger but in each other.